Can this deck be beat?
And
Gerard Fabiano's basically said no.
And a deck potent enough that it caused Gerard to hang up the Sultai cards at least for one weekend.
Yep, it's very telling. Given the success that Gerard has had with his Sultai control deck, that's very telling. We're underway here. A Temple of Enlightenment here for Merriam. Fabiano had a Dismal Backwater. He's a 21. And now a Temple of Enlightenment for him. So a little scry action. Mana Confluence. A Seeker of the Way.
So really big priority here for Gerard. Certainly game one, we has fewer edict effects available to kill stuff when Ross is tapped out. Do not play into Ajani's presence and God's willing and such as much as possible, though it seems like Gerard's got a slower draw here. No access to removal on the third turn.
Seeker of the Way coming into the red zone. Again, Ross, Gerard, they get to see each other's deck lists. They know what they're working with. Here's a copy of Hero Heroes. So Ross knows that Gerard has one Utter End, 2 copies of Foul-Tongue Invocation, 2 Crux of Fate, 2 Dissolve. He gets access to all those numbers. Doesn't make it any easier to play around those cards.
It does not. Though, good news for Ross here, Gerard a little bit behind the 8-ball, not doing anything for the first 3 turns of the game. Now Ross is untapping with a lot of mana, 2 threats in play, and now it's going to be challenging for Gerard to respond with his removal spells. You see Ross here with Defiant Strike on his Hero Rose, daring Gerard to cast a removal spell in response.
Yep. It'll trigger Prowess for Seeker of the Way. It'll trigger Heroic on the hero. And if it does resolve, life's not so bad. Gerard says that does resolve. Gerard's staring at a Hero's Downfall. These two may be playing a little game of chicken here. This will be interesting. Coming into the red zone here for 6 points of damage. Let's make it 7 with the Defiant Strike +1. See if Fabiano's willing to make a move. Foul-Tongue Invocation. That one you can't, God's willing. Can't Ajani's Presence that either.
And that's why it's an ideal removal spell for Gerard to have right here, because he does not want to play into God's Willing or Ajani's Presence this turn.
Gerard going to sacrifice his Flooded Strand. Islander of Plains on the way.
Attention Legacy players.
It'll be an island.
Standings at the end of round 7 are about to be posted.
That's a Foul-Tongue Invocation, and then when we get to sideboard, we talk about Self-Inflicted Wound, but these are the cards that just hammer Ross in these games. There's not much he can do about them, except counter them in the post-board games. And game one, the more of these edicts that show up, the worse it is for Ross.
Yep. Gerard with 5 cards in hand, 6th one coming. His mana is quite good right now. Let's see if he has a 5th one, though. Keep in mind, Hero's Downfall in hand. There's an island. Just a passing of the turn. Perhaps setting up something like Hero's Downfall plus Slumgar scoring.
Remember that Gerard did not reveal a dragon to the Foul-Tongue Invocation. So Slumgar Scorn may not be something that Ross particularly cares about right now, as Gerard did not represent that it was there before.
Here's Hero's Downfall. God's Willing. Going to take care of that. We're going to head back Fabiano as well. Take a draw. Polluted Delta. Breaking out the grid.
Like it. A lot on the line in this match. You can't let Ross feel like he's getting settled in.
That's true. Seal of approval here from Patrick.
Put your permanents all over the place. Make it hard to track.
Here's the Thoughtseize.
I'm going to put the Thoughtseize on top of Ross's deck.
Legacy judges.
Just keep.
Aggressive. That's an
Just
aggressive.
give him that southpaw style. You don't know what I'm capable of.
It's a little aggressive, I think. Take a look at Merriam's hand. He's got so many cards over there. It makes you wonder what he's got. Tramoka's Command is 1. Looks like a couple copies of Treasure Cruise. A God's Willing. Monastery Mentor. Interesting hand here. Jiroka's commands are pretty poor in this matchup. Mentor is just okay, but Ross is very clearly not willing to tap out for it. God's Willing is great, and the Treasure Cruise has got a lot of work to do.
And the second one's very bad.
Yeah.
This to me is almost certainly God's Willing out of this hand, assuming Gerard has any sort of removal spell to follow up with. Monastery Mentor being the second choice. I think the other spells are there's just no chance.
There goes God's Willing.
Competitors, your standings after 7 rounds of Swiss and pairings for the 8th round of
Coast is clear for a removal spell now, but it looks like Fabiano doesn't have one. Defiant Strike looks like the draw. Merriam gonna pace the game, coming across for 4. 4 more dealt. Is Ross willing to commit another threat to the table?
Seems very dangerous. I mean, if he has to tap out for Monastery Mentor, even Slumberguard scoring with no dragon takes care of it. And if Gerard has something like Crux of Fate, it's a disaster.
It is. There's more cards in the graveyard for Treasure Cruise.
The consolation prize.
That could matter. I could certainly see him wanting to tap out for this. I think the worst thing that can happen is I think it's easily the worst part if it just gets Slumgar scored.
Yeah.
I think that's an absolute disaster.
Well, how long is Ross going to wait otherwise?
That's the question.
With that said, you have 50 minutes.
The thing is, if Gerard had Crux of Fate, you'd imagine he would go take your Monastery Mentor, Crux you. Potentially.
But he might also be trying to walk you into a trap.
Maybe he's willing to take one hit here.
Yeah. Gerard going to go down to 5. Sacrifices Polluted Delta. Get himself a swamp. Feels like a dig through turn end step.
The problem is that I just don't know how much the Monastery Mentor is worth even after the fact, because it's just one removal spell.
Here's dig through time.
And then when you're giving Gerard this kind of cushion to resolve spells like this, then it's not too hard for him to find another answer. And the point about Treasure Cruise is well taken. I mean, we kind of joke around about it, but Ross needs to cast those at some point to get to the next wave of cards.
It lets him reload and play a creature in the same turn. You know, if things break accordingly.
Yeah.
And, you know, if he's able to find a fetch land, then he's got 7 cards in the graveyard. It's a 1-mana Treasure Cruise, all that good stuff. So, you know, the creatures dying would be bad, obviously, and I'm sure Ross would not like to see that happen, but it's not the end of the world, given the 2 Treasure Cruises in hand. I'm sure he's hoping and wishing that second Treasure Cruise was anything else, because I'm not sure the second one will have an impact on this game, but the first one can be quite good.
I suspect Ross's mentality right now is Gerard's down to very few cards in hand. Even with the dig through time, he's only going to 4, then 5 with his draw step. He doesn't have a dragon because that foul tongue, or at least he hasn't had one earlier on in the game because that foul tongue invitation was cast and no dragon was revealed. So Ross may feel, especially with Treasure Cruise in hand, that he may be able to win this game on a 1-for-1 basis. And when he starts opening himself up to either Gerard being able to cast his counter spells efficiently or blow up everything with Crux of Fate, that Gerard can win even if his hand isn't very good.
Do not determine the match by random means.
Dig through time is done resolving. Gerard is up to 4 cards, 5 after he draws.
Your 8th and final round of Swiss. You have 50 minutes to complete your match, and you may begin play. Good luck.
No land, just pass the turn back. It's a little scary. All spells. Merriam's draw for the turn was a Manic Influence. He'll play that. He'll come across here for 4 points of damage. Gerard down to 1. What is going on with his hand?
This is curious because, again, no creature got represented earlier on in the game.
Yeah.
Ross's hand, Gerard knew about via Thoughtseize, had no protection effect. So the coast seemed reasonably clear to just cast downfalls and such if he has them. And now if I'm Ross, now I'm starting to get really passive. I'm just saying, okay, go to 1 and I'll try to beat you on a 1-for-1 basis, because Monastery Mentor is such a powerful follow-up, because if Ross can pair it with another spell, then you have 2 things in play, and then you demand a sweeper.
Dragonlord's Prerogative has been cast. That resolved. Fabiano has 4 more cards. Draw step means 5 new ones. He's got a full grip. You have to imagine he has some sort of answer to this. Too many cards in his hand for him not to.
Remember, Ross gets a pretty potent follow-up here of something like, we know Monster Mentor plus Defiant Strike is something that's on the table for him. And then he's forcing the issue with a sweeper. And then, if Gerard's able to answer that, well, now Treasure Cruise is online. Now it's the next wave of stuff. And Gerard's at 1. I think Gerard...
Is he going to discard?
No land drop and discarding. It appears.
My goodness. I mean, Thoughtseize is obviously off the table. Ashiok is relatively poor right now, you have to imagine. Attack again.
All right.
Well, it's time to do something, Mr. Fabiano. Dig through time.
I mean, I know Gerard likes drawing cards,
But I can't even imagine what his hand is right now.
probably quite a few counter spells.
Yeah. All right, that's done resolving. There's Falto. You better believe he has a dragon.
This isn't even that bad of news for Ross because Gerard's tapped low enough that he now has an opportunity to play Monster Mentor and perhaps generate a token as well.
Cruise. He can play Defiant Strike too. He can play Defiant Strike on the Mentor, make a token. I think that's what he's going to do. Yep. Trigger the Mentor's prowess, make a token, draw a card, fetch. 1, 2, 3, 6. That's land number 7. Get an island off of that. As he has one island in the deck. Cruise, reload.
Flooded Strand was the draw.
It was very good.
Perfect.
It was very, very good. No doubt about it. When there's a lot on the line like this between two very good players who really want to win this match in this tournament, there will be some posturing.
Yep.
There's Cruz. Another Monastery Mentor token, 3 cards coming here from Merriam. Favorite Hoplites and a Windswept Heath.
Just some more knuckleheads for the next wave.
Yep. And that's what this is right now. It's all waves. Now, one thing you have to remember is that waves can be beaten by removal sometimes, Crux of Fate. We've seen Wrath effects be very good against waves of creatures. We're going to see Crux of Fate take care of this wave of creatures. Well, waves work sometimes against control decks, but waves of creatures from Heroic cannot beat Ugin.
No, that's another card to really look out for in this matchup is Ross game 1 is basically helpless against that card.
Yep. Ross going to sacrifice a Windswept Heath. Update for you here between Brad Fallen and Kyle Bogomese. Green Red Dragons up a game against Kyle Bogomese. So Fallen actually able to break serve. He's number 3 overall seed. Bogomese is the 2. Let's see what Ross is up to this turn. Favorite Hopline. Hero of Iroas. Gerard might stop him there. Maybe Slumgar Scorn. Yep. Revealing Dragon Lord Ojutai. Laguna Van Trailblazer. The reason you see Ross committing multiple threats now is because there are only 2 Crux of Fates in Gerard's deck.
Also, Gerard's getting to a spot where, you know, if Ross tries to measure his threats, Ugin just kills him, probably kills him no matter what. But an individual dragon becomes very hard to beat.
Within the hour. Thank you.
He's just kind of got to deploy the stuff in his hand. Also, there's still the second treasure cruise in his hand, so he can churn through again if Gerard's able to answer this wave as well.
Just walking a tightrope is Ross. About how are you supposed to pace the game? How are you supposed to measure your threats? Am I supposed to play multiples? Am I supposed to play one? As you mentioned, if he plays one, it's like, all right, I'll play a dragon. You need to play another one now.
Or foul tongue invocation.
Yep.
Now take another turn and try to reassemble.
If you play multiple threats and he has a crux, it's a disaster. You're almost playing this very difficult guessing game. Especially in game one where you don't have counter magic to kind of save you from getting the guess incorrect.
Right.
Five mana. Dragonlord Ojutai. Draw with two Dismal Backwaters up. Could be Slumgar Scorn. Could be Bile-Blight. Yep. Ross is going to try to get some use out of Dromoka's command here.
Nice.
The Guna Band's going to get pump it up.
Dromoka's command not doing much else.
No.
And this is safe from Bile-Blight, so.
At least you get to do something with the card. It's not the prettiest thing I've ever seen, but it'll work.
Remember that Gerard's not representing an edict. He could potentially have a counterspell, but Ross can split up his pump spells here, push through Bile-Blight, and actually make things pretty challenging for Gerard this turn, possibly even piece together a kill.
Ordeal of Thassadine, perhaps? Yep. It's going to target Laguna Band Trailblazer. Don't want to miss that heroic trigger, Russ.
Probably on the side. This is, again, now the target can't be Bile-Blighted.
Okay.
So it's just Slumgar Score or bust, and if Gerard uses it there, well, it's a lot of information to work with.
Here come the Knuckleheads. Trigger. Peel 2. Ordeal of Heliod. Windswept Teeth. Dragonlord Ojutai is going to go on the big one. Is Ross going to make a move? It looks like he is. Dromoka's command.
So this is two counters.
Mm-hmm.
And if this resolves, now this Hoplite is a 3/4.
Yep.
And Ross doesn't have to worry about getting blown out by Bile-Blight anymore. Maybe Gerard still has a counter.
And maybe Bile-Blight is okay with just saying, okay, I'll just follow your attack and then kill your guy the next turn or something. Who knows? Looks like Dromoka's command is resolved. Hey, Ross is correctly sensing some weakness here. Who knows? I mean, Gerard has had so many cards. Gerard discarded a couple turns ago.
But and the more that Ross takes these little jabs, the more you're in Ross's seat, you're thinking, well, Gerard would have stopped it by now if he had something. I mean, maybe he's sitting here trying to stop the lethal spell, but even if you, let's say you Dromoka's command your Hoplite here, and it gets countered, or there's a Bile-Blight to save Gerard from death, Dragonlord Ojutai is still chump blocking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not the end of the world.
Well, Gerard's taking a look at the hand now, because this is a lethal Dromoka's command. There's Slumgar Scorn. So he's countering that. Dragon in play. Counter, still gets a counter. Still going to be 4 points of damage. Dragonlord Ojutai is chump blocking, as you mentioned. There's a Windswept Teeth. Pass turn. Merriam, I believe, left with one card in his hand.
I believe it's that Treasure Cruise.
Yep.
The second one we saw from the Thoughtseize.
That's going to be relevant now. I guess the question is, has Ross played a land yet this turn? And this turn has been so lengthy that I think both players are unsure. And that certainly matters given the situation, because one mana in this deck, one white mana, it means so many different things.
Well, Gerard knows that the last card in the hand is Treasure Cruise from that earlier Thoughtseize.
That's true.
More of what this is about is if you're going to untap him, draw a card, and then draw 3 more cards off the Treasure Cruise, you don't know if you're going to want to make a land drop and then play other spells in your hand. So you don't want to set yourself behind this mana if you don't have to.
I think they're going through the turns. Yep, and they're good to go now. He did not play a land. He'll pass the turn back. Fabiano's going to untap. Ross has 2 cards. One of them is a Treasure Cruise. The other one, I think, is a mystery to Gerard. Fabiano has a dissolve. And that one's not very good. You're okay. I'm trying to make a hard sell. There's a maybe a caves. Try looking at the cards that he's exiled so far with dig through times. There's Caves of Koilos. What do we have here? Anticipate. Gonna go looking for help. Perhaps Ross has a response here. Interesting. Okay. Nope.
I'd be surprised. At this point, Ross is just going to react to removal. That's the only thing that would warrant him acting here. He doesn't even have to care about a dragon. He's got 2 lethal attackers still against 1 theoretical blocker.
Gerard's played his land for the turn. You see he's got 7 untapped mana. Ugin not an option now.
Mm-hmm.
See if Anticipate found something nice.
So he's got Utter End for 1 creature. Let's assume that besides the Treasure Cruise, the last card in Ross's hand is nothing that matters.
Okay.
You have a variety of 3-mana removal you can find. It looks like Gerard did not find it. And Bile Blight's off the table there. So it's Foul-Tongue Invocation, Hero's Downfall, plus the Utter End may allow Gerard to get to the next turn, but it looked like he couldn't find it.
Jiroko's Commands actually did something in game number 1 there for Ross Merriam. He's going to win game 1 over Gerard Fabiano. Bant Heroic up a game over Esper Dragons. So we take a look at the sideboard. This is where things get tough for Ross.
Very true. A Bile Blight, a Disable Stroke, a Dragon Lord's Prerogative, a Foul-Tongue Invocation, Ultimate Price, Dragon Lord Slumguard, 2 copies of Narset Transcendent, 2 Drown in Sorrow, a Duress, 3 Self-Inflicted Wound, and a Thoughtseize. I think the discard spells here are pretty good, but what I really like is the removal, particularly 3 copies of Self-Inflicted Wound. More Edicts for Gerard, very good in this matchup because Ross can't protect it with protection effects. The Bile Blight, I think, will come in, the Foul-Tongue Invocation, the Ultimate Price, and I think Dragon Lord Slumgar, also pretty potent in this matchup.
Take a look at the other sideboard here for Ross. 2 Aqueous Form, 3 Encased Nice, 2 Ordeal of Iliad, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 3 Stubborn Denial, 2 Treasure Cruise, and an Island.
I will direct you to the bottom of that list there with Disable Stroke, Stubborn Denial, Treasure Cruise, and probably the Island. That's the typical package. Something along these lines is what Heroic has for this kind of matchup. And all these cards are very good in long games.
Yeah, the Island in the sideboard. Curious about why Tom and Ross were doing this, but you swap the Island for the Forest.
Yeah, you're taking out, so there's a couple reasons. Yeah, you're taking out the Dromoka's commands.
Yeah.
So you want an Island instead. Also, even if you didn't want to do that, it would still be defensible because you get into spots where you need to hold up multiple blue spells. Game 1, your blue cards are basically just Ordeal, Thassa, and a couple of your creatures. Post-board, you get into spots where you say, well, I want to cast a creature and leave up Stubborn Denial, or I want to hold up 2 counter spells, or Treasure Cruise and then play a blue card after the fact. So you have more demands for individual blue mana in your post-board games.
Players are going to sideboard, get ready. We're going to take a look at the Season 2 schedules. We're about halfway home through this season. It's been a lot of fun to watch, too. Even though it's a short one, it's been enjoyable. Chris Manmeter won Syracuse in dominant fashion with Green Red Dragons. His deck had a huge effect on the Pro Tour and the decks that players played at Star City Games States. Providence last weekend won by 14-year-old Oliver Tomico. Beat Andrew Boswell and Dustin Taylor on the way. And now we're here in Cleveland, and we're watching Ross Merriam and Gerard Fabiano have the right to play in the finals against either Kyle Bogamies or Brad Fallon. Portland next week, though.
Yeah, we shift to the other side of the country onto the West Coast. Remember, this was the show that was going to be in Seattle. It's been moved to Portland. That's next weekend, May 2nd and 3rd. Take a weekend off after that. Then we go to Dallas for a Standard Open. The weekend after that, our one Legacy Open Series event of Season 2 in Worcester, Massachusetts. And then to close out Season 2, the Invitational in Columbus, Ohio. Tied to the Oranges Gate Fair. We got a lot planned there over 5 days of Magic. Modern and Standard will be the Invitational formats. That's the first time that Modern is appearing as a main event at an Invitational with a 2-day, $20,000 Modern Open Series event, June 5th through 7th.
Of course, at all of those events during Season 2, you can get the Polar Punch playmat, free limited edition, as you like to say, no strings attached.
It comes free with entry, not to the first people who register, not for people who register online, not at random, and you get it on site, and that's available throughout the end of Season 2.
Looking forward to the Season 3 playmat when it does get here. No spoilers there, though. You get to enjoy the Polar Punch for about another month here, I guess. I guess April's almost over. Unbelievable.
Yeah, we're basically done.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast time goes by doing this job, but it is what it is.
I believe Friday is May the 1st.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, just gone as usual. Just time going away. But been enjoying it, watching these guys play Magic, especially these two. This year, it has been a lot of fun to watch them both play. You know, I remember you saying something about Ross that I definitely agreed with. Especially last year when we watched him play. You know, he is a fantastic player who's been really dedicating a lot of time to the game. But there have been times with him where the mistake, he would make a mistake so bad, you would be like, I can't believe that this guy ever wins.
Yep.
You know, the mistake that he would make was just like, it would just be horrifying, and he would even admit it. But, you know, over the course of this year, he has just been so locked in. That game that he won against Collins Mullen to make it here, I don't know if Ross wins that game last year.
Totally agree. And a lot of that has to do with just hard work, dedication, and if you've read his writing, some introspection as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he is aware that he wasn't always playing his best, always didn't have an ideal level of focus, and has cleaned all that up. Now you see that rewarded with a lot of good Open Series performances, an opportunity to maybe get the invite to the Players' Championship, a top 8 Grand Prix Cleveland recently. Some very good performances all strung together.
Temple of Enlightenment number 2 here for Merriam. Top card's going to stay on top. We go over to Fabiano. Fabiano will draw. Caves of Coilos. There's a swamp past that turn back. If you're Gerard, you got to like how this game starts. Nothing really happening. You have the initiative. The ability, you have to imagine to kill the first couple of creatures. There's a Flooded Strand. Hero of a... Nope. We thought.
False alarm.
Yep. A nice pump fake there by Ross. Seeker of the Way. Hero's Downfall. Let's get this off the table, or at least try. And of course, if you're Gerard, you're going to put him to the test. You have God's Willing? Yes, no? Yep, okay.
Well, post-board in this spot, it could also be Stubborn Denial.
Absolutely.
But you can't just... Gerard's modes of interaction, for the most part, are expensive enough that he can't just try to build up a hand and try to do it all in one flurry. It's all 3-mana stuff. So he's got to sort of just bleed these cards out, even if it does lead to some uncomfortable turns, and Ross gets to seize the initiative a little bit. Gerard's just got to get these cards out of his hand.
Merriam going to scry. That top card went to the bottom. His Seeker of the Way is safe for now. Fabiano just have a Plains to play. Also a Swamp. So a couple of lands. He'll play the Plains. 3 mana. Hero's Downfall. Get it out of here. Pass the turn back. Over to Merriam. You know, speaking with Tom Ross this weekend, as there's a Temple of Mystery, a little scry action, top card go to the bottom. Tom got his brains beat in by aggro decks this weekend. He said that his build of Heroic was geared much more towards mid-range and control decks. Really poor matchup against the mono red decks of the world. As there's a Laguna Band Trailblazer and a Hero of Erois. That's why Tom's tournament to go very well. It seems like Ross's deck is still geared towards the non-aggressive decks, but much more geared towards trying to beat this deck and your mid-range decks.
I mean, the sideboard here is about as good as you could script for this kind of matchup.
I think so. No guarantee that he'll win, of course, but he definitely has the tools, and winning game 1 is huge.
Yeah, I mean, his sideboard's very, very good. He gets to cut the Dromoka's commands, which is almost as big of an improvement as the cards he's bringing in. Gerard's sideboard's also very strong for the matchup. But Ross gets to clear out a lot more garbage than Gerard does.
Ordeal of Thassa. Coming on in. This will be a 4-point attack. Looks like it's good to go. 4-power creature there now, too.
And you might laugh at that Laguna Band Trailblazer, but it is great protection against Edict effects.
Yep.
Ross can throw that one away.
Time to untap. There's Dragonlar's prerogative on the upkeep. Ooh, boy, no dragon to reveal.
Yeah, that's potentially running into stubborn denial or disdainful stroke, but it looks like Ross had neither.
It's interesting. Do you think it's in Gerard's range to just play that card without revealing a dragon?
Gerard needs help.
Yep.
Gerard needs help right now.
Okay.
He's struggling a little bit.
Here's a healthy attack for 5.
4 cards is also just a ton of cards.
That's true. That's true. You know, maybe it's a situation where he plays that, it gets countered by Stubborn Denial, and then he untaps and Crux of Fates the opponent. Something like that. I mean,
the only scenario where I can see running that sort of play is if you had a dragon in your hand you absolutely had to resolve and you were worried about disdainful stroke.
Okay.
I guess it's possible, but at this stage it's too early on in the game to be kind of running those kind of shenanigans. Even if Gerard's behind right now, drawing 4 cards is a habit of catching people up.
Well, Ross wanted some cards too, so he resolved a Treasure Cruise with a mana open, which means, again, Stubborn Denial, God's Willing, and Johnny's Presence, all options here. Let's see what he has. Thoughtseize is not a bad way to lead off. A Seeker of the Way, a Defiant Strike. I know Gerard's going to separate it for us, so it's 2 Seekers. A Battlewise Hotblade, a Monastery Mentor, a Plains, a Defiant Strike, and Ordeal Thought. So the coast is very clear.
Yeah, from Gerard's perspective, this is a pretty tame hand. It's light on sideboard cards right now, and nothing to disrupt Gerard's big plays. So this is pretty good news, given that Ross has seen so many cards for the last turn or two.
Let's see what he wants to select and how he wants to move forward, because now he's got a good idea of what Merriam is working with, and he has a pretty good idea of where this game is going to go.
Yeah.
We got an update for you on another match. A great run by Kyle Boggamies. But his tournament is over. Brad Fallen with Green Red Dragons moves on to the finals. He wins that match 2-0. He's playing the winner of this one. Here's another Thoughtseize. Gerard taking some more damage. Taking Defiant Strike, leaving Ross with a bunch of creatures.
Ross still pretty insulated here from the Edict effects, Foul Tongue Invocation, and Self-Inflicted Wound. You gotta be a little nervous if you're Ross that you're being led down a road here of walking into Crux of Fate or some other sweeper. Taking willing to cast another Thoughtseize, falling to 8, taking a Defiant Strike. That's a sign of strength from Gerard. He's saying, I don't care too much about what's going on in your hand right now. I need you to cut you off from some of your more significant draws.
A Defiant Strike is, it's like a strange card to take with Thoughtseize because it's one of the weaker cards in the deck, I think you would say. But it does imply something by taking it.
Well, it may be one of the weaker cards in the deck, although it's one of the most significant cards in the deck. But it's saying that a random card is more powerful right now than the cards that are in your hand.
Dig through time. All right.
And now you can see why Gerard wanted to take the Defiant Strike there. He's taking yet another turn off. And if Ross found a counterspell here, it's possible Gerard just doesn't have enough time and resources to stabilize this board.
It sure feels like Gerard's struggling this game.
He's looked at a lot of cards, and normally when you look at a lot of cards, how you want to follow up is answer the board. And what Gerard did this turn is cast 2 Thoughtseizes and then draw more cards.
Yeah.
That's not what he wants to do in this spot.
Gerard's looking pretty hard at a Bile Blight there as the first card from the Dig Through Time.
It's
He's already selected one, but the Bile Blight's at the front of his hand.
It's the same play pattern that we saw last game, and I'm not saying that Gerard messed up. His cards were what they were, but he never got to really, you want those sequences of answer your board, answer your board, answer your board, gas back up, repeat until you're out of stuff to do.
Yep.
And instead, Gerard's been sort of getting behind things a little bit, trying to draw cards and stem the bleeding and never turn the game around.
There's a Temple. It's very unlikely Gerard dies this turn.
And now you can see why he took Defiant Strike, because if he let Defiant Strike, he might get killed.
Yeah, he could die. And if Ross draws Defiant Strike, he could maybe chain off Defiant Strike into something else. Now here's a Plains. So it's just a simple attack there for 5. Fabiano's going to go down to 3. Windswept Teeth was the draw. Now, if you're Ross, do you play more stuff?
I think you may want to play one more thing because I think you want to be able to beat 2 Edict effects, which at this point is realistic for Gerard to have found.
Temple of Enlightenment, the draw for Fabiano.
Because if you hold back and Gerard even says Foul Tongue Invocation, revealing a dragon, and another removal spell, even if Ross holds stuff back, I don't know if it's going to be enough.
Yeah, me either. A lot of cards in Gerard's hand. A little bit of a smile coming across, too. Thing is, he's got a good idea what Ross has in his hand. He knows it's all creatures. One of the cards is a mystery. That mystery is a Windswept Teeth. And you have to imagine with the Dragon Lord's Prerogative, with the Dig Through Time, with some temples, you'd be so surprised if he had nothing to do. No way to get out of this.
I mean, he's also showing a lot of air. He's looked at a lot of card drawing. He's looked at a lot of thought seizes.
Caves of Koilos is the land. Pass the turn back. Draw. And much like in game number 1, he's going to have something.
Yep.
Or he's dead.
And now Ross has to try to figure out what are the million permutations of things that Gerard could be doing here. I like setting in the Trailblazer.
Me too. I was hoping he would do it.
It's just another thing for Gerard to think about.
Yep. Smart attack. Bile-Blight.
And this is not killing it. Gerard with Ashiok in the hand too. I mean, he has a setup here that's very controlling. I mean, these are cards you would anticipate coming in for a control matchup. And I think this has been part of the reason that his card drawing spells have not yielded very much.
He's going down to 1. Ross going to play Windswept Teeth. Again, is Ross willing to play another creature? That's the question. The past couple of turns, the answer's been no. Here's Dragon Lord's Prerogative again to get a gas back up. Hope it doesn't get countered. You don't have to worry about any direct damage. That's not a thing here. Prerogative resolves. 4 cards coming. Now, Gerard does have a copy of Foul Tongue Invocation in his hand. Don't know if he has a dragon, but we know he has a Foul Tongue. You mentioned Ashiok, but no time to get that onto the table. So he's drawn his card for the turn, and now he's got his 4 from Prerogative. So 5 new cards here for Fabiano.
This has been a bizarre set of games thus far.
It has been. It has been. You know, I think game 1, Ross did a nice job of pacing and measuring his threats. But, you know, again, this game feels like a lot like the last one where he's walking this tightrope of, all right, maybe I should play another threat and then make his edicts worse. But if I do that, I walk in a Crux of Fate. But if I don't, I make his dragons good. It's really, really tough. Now, if Ross was sitting behind a wall counter magic in God's Willings, it would be actually be really easy. But all his hand is at this point really is creatures. Now you can see Gerard's hand a little bit better now. Slumgar Scorn, Foul Tongue Invocation, Dragon Lord Ojutai. How do you sequence this stuff? Great question. And it's funny too because the way that, you know, Ross keeps pacing the game, it's just more and more turns for Gerard to find Ugin, which is kind of the end-all, be-all in the mirror. Things changed after Cyborg and Stubborn Denial was involved, of course, but did have those cards. Disdainful Stroke, too. Temple of Enlightenment, a card in Gerard's hand here.
And I'm sure Ross is kind of weirded out by the way this game is shaped up, too. I mean, he's held back a lot of creatures assuming that he was going to get hit with a sweeper, or maybe he would get hit with 2 removal spells in 1 turn or something, and just nothing of the sort from Gerard's deck.
playing white weenie versus control decks just over the course of Magic, playing against control decks have a lot of removal. This Gerard's going to discard. It's always very uneasy if you're supposed to keep putting stuff on the table or not. Because you don't have any reach in your deck. It means you can't get it wrong. If you get it wrong and they're at 1 at the end of the game, you lost.
Yep.
And chances are, if that's happened, you screwed up.
Or at least you were playing around A when they had B.
When they had B, yeah. So you've made a bad read or a bad decision or something. So that's what makes it so tough on Ross's side, is that, you know, if he says, I don't think you have Crux of Fate, dump all my stuff, and he's like, yeah, I have Crux of Fate, you lose. It's over. There's no coming back.
Yep.
You saw Hero's Downfall take care of the Hero of Iroas. Here's Monastery Mentor. And Gerard's been sitting on counter Magic, it feels like forever. And Laguna Man Trailblazer isn't much of a threat, but it doesn't need to be much of one. It just needs to deal one. All right, here's Foul Tongue Invocation. There's Dragonlord Ojutai. All right, Trailblazer, you got to go away. Gerard's going to go up to 5.
No big cost there for Ross.
Nope. Does Mentor resolve? Salumgar Scorn. Reveal that dragon. That's gone too.
Now Ross has got to dump out. He's got to get a couple things into play now.
Going to sacrifice some fetch lands. Not sure if Ross has another Treasure Cruise or not. We're going to find out, I think, in a minute here. He'll get an island. And a Plains, too, I think. Yep. Yeah, the pacing and the measuring, that's over.
Yeah.
And that, the other thing about the pacing and the measuring, too, is, you know, you're trying to measure around all these different removal spells and different plays they can have. And by doing that, you're giving your opponent a lot of time. Now, if you were just putting a ton of pressure on Gerard, maybe he never had time to cast Dragonlord's Prerogative.
It's just tough because it's hard to, if you're in Ross's seat, it's hard to believe that that's what Gerard's going to be doing, is drawing cards and saying go for forever.
Yeah.
And maybe he does have a sweeper and he's just trying to set up the perfect hand of reaction to it and a way to push it through.
At times, when you're playing an aggressive deck that has no reach, not your mono reds of the world, you really are kind of stabbing around in the dark.
Yep. It's why I never enjoyed playing those decks.
I love it. I always loved it. Because when you get it right, there's no better feeling.
Oh, no, I believe it.
There's nothing better than getting it right. And when you get it wrong, trust me, it is agonizing. It is truly, truly agonizing. Here's Seeker of the Way. Pass the turn back. He's got mana available. For Gerard, he's got to play a little guessing game, too, of what this mana means. Not so much anymore. Thoughts he's going to be cast. He's got to go down to 3. Battlewise Hoplite, Stubborn Denial, Laguna Band, Trailblazer, God's Willing, Defiant Strike. Those are the cards. It's not a bad set of cards.
But this is the type of hand that's still very vulnerable to Gerard's big plays.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's important for Gerard to have his discard in his deck still, even though, you know, it's not always good when he's behind and his life total is, you know, under attack and the matchup is. There is, at the end of the day, a very limited range of cards that Ross has that can interact with Gerard's big plays. When they come up, it's very, very good for Ross. When you hit things like Ugin or Crux of Fate or one of the dragons with Disdainful Stroke, or you hit a timely removal spell with Stubborn Denial, it's great. So Gerard can pick apart this stuff and invalidate large swaths of the creatures with individual cards.
The information's so important, too. Because Gerard might be trying to play around a bunch of different stuff, and it's just like, I don't need to play around all that stuff. I can just play around this one thing now.
Yep.
At this point now, all he really needs to play around is God's Willing. There is a copy of Defiant Strike which can cantrip into something, but for the most part, it's God's Willing now. Here's Dig Through Time. Bunch of cards. Look at 7, take 2. Gerard and his good friends behind him watching him play. The crossed arms of Andrew Boswell. Who else would be in that Toy Wiz hoodie?
Something of a calling card.
It is. I'm not a fan of the sleeves, but it was cold in Cleveland this weekend, so I understand. They made the trip together. Boswell had a pretty good weekend. His good buddy Gerard is having a better one. He's down a game right now and underneath some pressure to win, sitting at 3 life.
I think he's starting to He's found another edict effect.
Starting to claw his way out of this.
Yep.
There's a self-inflicted wound. I was wondering if he was ever going to draw one of those things.
I know, 3 on the board.
Yeah. Now here's Dragon Lord Ochitai, and he can very confidently tap out. He doesn't have to worry about Lightning Bolt, Siege Rhino, none of that stuff.
And now Ross just needs to dump.
Yep.
He needs to play everything he can.
This kind of jockeying and measuring of threats now, that's pretty much out the window.
Yeah, Gerard's blunted enough of Ross's offense now. He's threatening to turn the game around very quickly, and Ross does not have the time or luxury to play around every card in Gerard's deck anymore.
Defiant Strike's going to target Battle-Wise Hoplite. That's going to get a counter. He'll get the Scry, of course, from Heroic. Now he'll get the draw from Defiant Strike. Disdainful Stroke has been drawn by Merriam. Fabiano does not know about that card. Favorite Hoplite, pass it back. That Disdainful Stroke was actually a pretty important draw in case Fabiano was setting up something with Crux of Fate.
Especially since the information's concealed. I mean, you didn't see it last time with the Thoughtseize. It's going to be on Gerard's radar, but he's not going to make huge efforts to play around a random draw step and a scry and then a draw, which is what Ross was able to do last turn.
Fabiano, one of the cards in his hand is Polluted Delta. And it makes you wonder if he's forced into the situation of attacking with Dragon Lord Ochitai this turn to maybe find some help. Oddly enough, you take a look at Merriam's life total, he's at 15. It's 3 hits from Dragon Lord, but don't know if Gerard's going to get the opportunity to go in for those hits.
There's been a recurring theme that I've seen this weekend, which is when it looks like the straights are dire enough that you're considering blocking with Dragon Lord Ochitai, you need to attack to find help.
Sure. That's what he's doing. Puts you to 10. Take a look at the top 3. Does he find what he's looking for? He's sweating it out. He definitely needs some help. Foul-Tongue Invocation, some help.
Self-inflicted wound as well.
I think the life that Foul-Tongue Invocation gains.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It also comes underneath that the Disdainful Stroke radar. Ashiok. Turn over a Seeker, a Hero, and a God's Willing. Ross is just dying to untap.
Yeah.
Pass the turn. Upkeep, Foul-Tongue Invocation.
And Gerard really needs this life.
Yep. Trailblazer down. Fabiano up to 7. Gonna keep on fighting. Looks like we might have this on the upkeep.
Yeah, Ross trying to scry for some help here. I think he knows that he's got to try to kill this turn if he can.
Top card goes to the bottom. From the Battle-Wise Hoplite, Heroic Scry. Now the God's Willing Scry.
I mean, Gerard's down to 2 cards in hand, and his board is about to become overwhelming.
Yep.
So I think that Ross is well served just trying to kill this turn if he can.
Ashiok is going to have too much of an effect on this game, I think.
Yep.
Just some idiot creature in play just messes things up.
Yeah, just any blocker is very powerful here. Gerard gets a draw step plus a hit with Dragon Lord Ochitai. Yep. It's too much. I think Foul-Tongue Invocation may be left in Gerard's hand right now.
That would be nice. Oh, wow. That's huge. He's up to 11. 11 is so much right now.
Yeah.
Take a draw.
Now, Treasure Cruise may be able to piece this together still. Wow.
Okay.
You see Gerard.
Yep.
He knows that was the one card that gives him a shot.
Looks like he drew quite a few creatures. There's a Defiant Strike, I think, in those cards. All right, here we go. Hiya.
And Gerard is just Cannot believe this is happening right now. Had to be a perfect set of cards here for Ross to be able to cobble together lethal this turn. And, you know, Ross is at least threatening it.
He's going to leave that card on top. Draw a card. God's willing. Cast favorite hoplites. Sorry, coming across for, I believe, 6.
Yep, that's 6.
I believe. Put him down to 5. All right, Fabiano gets to untap. Quickly draw a card. Yep, this is a good place to start. Into the red zone with Dragon Lord Ojutai. It's 5-5. Take a look at the top 3. The hood's down now. The hat is off. It's getting serious out here.
If you're in Gerard's position last turn, you got to feel like it's going to take a real fortunate string of cards for Ross to stay in this. It can't even be 1.
Ashiok going to go down to 3. His favorite planeswalker brings the Seeker of the Way with it. There's Nile and pass the turn.
And Ross kept God's willing.
Yes,
so he has an opportunity here if he wants to just go for the kill. I don't know what other support he has, but God's willing set to white does allow him to go for the kill.
Ross takes a look at what's exiled. I do not believe he's drawn a card for his turn yet. I think he wants to know what he can draw to in this situation to get this game over with. What are his outs? What is he likely to run into?
And the God's willing gives him access to multiple scries as well.
Yep.
If he wanted them.
He just drew a card for the turn. He's going to play Manic Influence. There's a God's Willing. Slumgar Scorn. Dragon is in play. Also, you get to trigger the Prowess. Ooh. Okay. All right. That was a game. That was a game.
I mean, that's one if Ross has a Stubborn Denial to fire back with.
He had a Disdainful Stroke, not a Stubborn Denial.
Yep.
All right. Can we make it best of 5?
I wouldn't mind.
I'll sit here. I'll watch this all day. I don't mind. Gerard, Fabiano, Ross, Merriam. Whew, they are tied up. Game number 3 between Bant Heroic and Esper Dragons. Gonna be coming up for you guys in just a minute. Man, oh man. You know a game is good when someone extends the hand and the match isn't even over.
Yeah. I mean, you saw the faces of Gerard there, from smiling and affable to cap is off to color is going out of the face a little bit when that treasure cruise was drawn.
What a game.
I mean, he had some early stumbles and fumbles there. The deck was not particularly cooperative. He was still able to draw a bunch of cards, eventually getting to the spots where he's chaining together removal spells and protecting with counter spells and the things his deck is trying to do. But Ross was able to hang on there for a while, found a treasure cruise that yielded more resources, and was almost able to come back from a spot where Gerard's ahead and hitting with Dragon Lord Ojutai.
All right, very quickly, we will talk about the Spring Creature Collection. Some people are wondering where Gerard got his sleeves. You're able to pick up those sleeves that he's playing, our cat sleeves, cat playback, cat dice bag, all this awesome stuff. Some of it from game night, and then a little pun. The Delver Squeakrits.
Delver Squeakrits.
Thank you.
Available, card sleeves, play mats, dice bags, StarCityGames.com/creature collection. You can check out all these items. Place your order today, or you can just head over to the dealer booth at any of our opens or any Grand Prix we're vending.
What a second game between those guys. I tell you what.
That was great.
They're going to go back to the drawing board, take a look at the deck list now, too.
And it's got to feel good if you're Ross that you were able to hang around there in a later game where Gerard drew a bunch of cards, played a bunch of removal spells, did powerful Esper Dragon stuff, and Ross was there until the very last turn.
Yep. The importance of this match, it can't be overstated. Just 5 versus 6, the leaderboard. These two are 4 points apart, and with how poor of a weekend Kevin Jones and Joe Lissette had, and Danny Jessup not in attendance this weekend, you know, a minimum 15 Open Series points for these guys. Minimum with a loss. 20 for whoever finishes in second, which one of them is, of course, going to advance, and 25 for first.
And it's very important for both of these players, a little bit more so for Gerard. You see, let's say Gerard loses this match right now. We're looking at 15 points for his weekend. That puts him at 198, which still puts him behind Kevin even before we account for the IQ and the opening year participated. For Ross, a win here jumps him to 207 at the minimum and potentially all the way up to 212, which should secure him first place in the standings. Once we exclude Jim Davis, who's already qualified, you see the trophy next to his name. He was the Season 1 point invitee to the Players' Championship. So a lot on the line for this match. These two players competing with one another and also competing with the three players in front of them, Kevin Jones, Danny Jessup, and Joe Lissette.
And what's interesting, too, is I'm not entirely sure what Gerard's plans are next week. And, of course, we're going to be in Portland in the Open Series. We're going to be on the West Coast. I don't know if we're going to see him fly over there or not. We know that Joe is going to be there, obviously. It's unclear if Gerard or anybody else is going to. I know for sure that Ross isn't. We know that we're talking with him. He's going to a wedding in Hawaii next weekend. So he is not going to be in attendance at anything. And we've actually seen Ross make West Coast trips before.
Yes.
But that will not be the case this weekend. So I don't want to say that it's more important for one player than the other, but we know for sure that Ross Merriam is not playing Magic next weekend. On the Open Series, Grand Prix, nothing. So for him, this might be a little more important. Again, I don't want to say it's more important for one player than the other, but not sure what Gerard's plans are next weekend. I don't know if he's the kind of guy who wants to go to Portland, if he has IQs in his area, what his schedule is. He's been really busy with work for some of this season. So.
Well, Gerard's also behind Ross in points right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if Ross wins that match, this match right here, it magnifies Ross's lead over Gerard,
yes,
including the rest of the field. So a lot riding on this for both players for sure. Ross, as you mentioned, does come out to some of the West Coast shows, got a little bit of some West Coast roots, went to school out Harvey Mudd in California.
Yep. I remember an Open Series in Portland. I think I actually covered it with you, where it was last year, I think at the beginning of the year. Fabiano was going to take a mulligan, and Ross just walked in, and we're just like, what are you doing here? This is not even close to where you are. He's like, I was in Los Angeles seeing some friends from college, and there's an Open Series event, so I just kind of flew up, took a cheap flight, wanted to battle. I'm like, that's pretty awesome.
Yep.
So, and for the Season 4 Invitational last year, Portland was the weekend before, and him and a bunch of other people came to Portland, played that Open Series event, and then just stayed in Seattle for the weekend. So again, it's not out of the realm of possibility for him. It's just things have not lined up accordingly for him given the wedding that he has next weekend. So.
And then after Portland, off for a week, then Dallas, Worcester for Legacy.
Dallas is going to be the good one.
There's going to be a lot of people traveling that one.
Yeah, Dallas is going to be the good one. Fabiano looking at 6 cards. He is going down to 5, not timely. Given how that second game played out, you hate to see Mulligan step into this. He'll be looking
especially
at 5
after
cards.
that how stressful that game too was for you know.
That entire game 2 is the best of SCG Live. I don't know. It's tough to have a 40-minute clip.
It's a long drive home, is all I'm saying.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Gerard is great.
Yeah, he really is. He really is. And, you know, his credit, those hands must have been bad if he mulliganed.
I think that Gerard...
They must have been bad.
That whole Gerard doesn't mulligan thing, I think that's a little overstated now. Back in the day, he was definitely a crazy person about it. But I think the worst of it has been cleaned up. And frankly, you can't win as much as he's been winning over the last year doing nonsense like that.
Yeah. Temple of Enlightenment, top card goes to the bottom for Fabiano. You saw Merriam start off with a Manic Influence into a Laguna Band Trailblazer. He'll sacrifice a Flooded Strand. We'll have a Plains or an Island on the way here in just a moment. There's no Ordeal of Thassa, so that'll trigger Heroic. And then, of course, it'll get a counter. So 2 damage dealt, 1 counter away from getting some cards.
And Ross knows that this is in the clear. It's basically just self-inflicted wound that can trap him here. And Gerard led with a land that doesn't make black mana. He's on 5 cards, and if this sticks, you're probably good.
Yep. That answers that question.
Yup.
Temple of Enlightenment.
No copies of Glare of Heresy in Gerard's sideboard, for example, so it's really just self-inflicted wound. And Gerard would have to have an untapped black source of mana and self-inflicted wound on a 5-card hand. It's asking a lot.
Another Ordeal was the draw. Here comes Ross. 2 cards. 3 damage going to be dealt, it seems. Treasure Cruise, one of the cards. There's a Temple of Plenty. Take a look at that top card. It's going to stay on top. Seeker of the Way. Pass the turn back. Fabiano draws a copy of Ugin. And though that's not the best draw, it's at least something to work towards. You can sculpt your entire plan around that now.
If it resolves, it's still game.
Yep.
Now, Ross is better at fighting against it in the post-board games because of Disdainful Stroke, but as you mentioned, it's at least something.
Yep.
Gerard's probably not going to win this game, with on 5 cards, Ross already having triggered an Ordeal of Thassa. Just with Heroes, Downfalls, and Bioblights, that's not going to be good enough here. He needs to get to some sort of big trump, and Ugin is his best trump of all.
Flooded Strand here from Merriam. There's the Plains. Another Ordeal. Yeah, that'll trigger Prowess too. 2 triggers coming here. We'll see if Fabiano has a response.
And Ross, no interest in trying to diversify his creatures right now because of the Edict effects in Gerard's stack.
Yep. Fabiano going to sacrifice Blue to Delta.
Sometimes against removal-heavy strategies, you see people, they want to spread the love around a little bit, so they're not all in on any one particular threat. But because Ross has a lot of control over what dies, it's more of an incentive to load up on one thing.
Yeah. See what removal spell Fabiano has. I believe Foul Tongue Invocation here. Yep. That's potential for Merriam to have a counter spell in this situation. Maybe he wants to push his advantage. No reveal from Fabiano. There's no life gained, trigger or the Ordeal. 2 cards coming. Windswept Teeth is 1. Don't have a great look at the second one, but 4 damage dealt. Another Trailblazer.
More insurance against self-inflicted wound or foul tongue invocation.
Passing the turn. Merriam will draw. Stubborn Denial is what he's picked up. That's a hard counter at this point. Time to come across. No harm in attacking with the 0-4.
Might as well. It's one of those things where, if Gerard is able to kill your large creatures inside of combat, you want to be able to pump the Trailblazer, or at least represent that all this could happen.
Yep. Sacrifice Windswept Teeth here, Will Ross. 6 cards in the graveyard for those of you counting at home for Treasure Cruise. And there is Cruise. 3 cards coming. Saw him deal 5. Left 1 down there. Pass the turn back. Once they have 2 mana available, it seems. 1 for maybe Stubborn, something like a Stubborn Denial plus God's Willing, stuff like that.
Yep.
Here's another Foul Tongue Invocation. No Dragon to reveal.
Everyone, if you believe you will be making a cast,
Maybe has some interest in casting Stubborn Denial here. We'll see.
He may be discarding to hand size anyway.
Yep.
we do not currently have your.
And if he has a protection effect for Downfall or a similar spell, then at that point you're only playing around what another Edict effect does. So at that point it's potentially worth the Stubborn Denial.
Yep. Dismal Backwater. A little bit of life gain there for Gerard. He's up to 7.
And now with Stubborn Denial, if Ross can push together a flurry of pump spells with Stubborn Denial back up, we may see him go for the kill right now.
There's Temple. There's Defiant Strike. I think it's go time.
All right, Legacy players. I hold in my hand the standings at the end of Swiss.
Can he finish
I
him
want
off?
to thank everybody for coming out to play today.
Just needs one more spell.
Yep.
What is the biggest tournament
There's Hero of Aroas. Yes.
You've all been a blast.
Foul tongue invocation. Stubborn denial.
The judge staff who helped you enjoy your day.
That's one more spell.
First place on 20 points.
That is going to do it. Ross Merriam is going to win this game and match here over Gerard Fabiano, 2-1. Bant Heroic will take care of Esper Dragons. It's been a great tournament for Gerard. #1 overall seed, lost one match all weekend, but now it's 2. Ross Merriam's going to move on to the finals.
Disappointing in there for Gerard. All getting to 5 there in game number 3 and never really getting anything going. But Ross did win the first game, obviously, and game 2 was able to stick around with Gerard well into the late game, even in spots where it seemed like Gerard had completely pulled away with it. So you got to see